So your body is a pharmacy. And when you start to learn how to operate this machine, you get to once again be the driver and not be driven, by somebody who's stolen the car and is running amok in the neighborhood. And now you're having to pay the bills for that. So you get to operate this beautiful, wonderful machine that we have called the body.
Welcome back to yet another episode of I Love Being Sober. My name is Tim Westbrook, and I'm the CEO of Camelback Recovery here in the always sunny and always sober Scottsdale, Arizona, where my team and I, over the course of many years, have helped thousands of people on their path to recovery. We started this show because there's so much misinformation about addiction treatment, mental illness, and recovery in general. There's so much more to recovery than just going to inpatient treatment, seeing a therapist, and going to 12-step meetings. Those things are important, and AA saved my life. However, to find long-term recovery and live happy, joyous, and free, there's a lot more to it than just stopping the drinking or stopping the drugs or stopping any addictive behavior. To live a new life, a person needs to develop new, healthy lifestyle habits. And taking care of the mind, body, and spirit are crucial aspects to the recovery process as well. Today, I'm here with Michael Roviello. Michael is the co-founder of Phoenix's only human optimization center designed to align your mind, body, and breath for elements of nature optimized. We are also going to talk about physical, emotional, and spiritual wellness using natural methods, including red light therapy, breath work, cold water therapy. A New York City native, Michael chose to leave his hometown of Queens to join the U.S. Navy in 1999. With years of conducting helicopter search and rescue missions, deployed around the globe as a helicopter rescue swimmer, combat search and rescue crewman, and anti-submarine warfare operator, deployed to Operation Enduring Freedom in Afghanistan in 2001 and Operation Iraqi Freedom in 2003. After many months with cervical spine issues, neurological pain, and degradation, Michael turned to natural methods after fully exploring Western science medical practices, spine surgery, pain management, and pharmaceutical intervention. After declining a professional recommendation for a second cervical surgery, Michael explored alternative methods and ideologies to healing, putting a lot of emphasis in trying to understand the mind-body connection with hopes that this would put an end to pain, anxiety, depression, insomnia, and neurological issues. Michael's journey took him into the Amazon jungle, exploring healing modalities used by indigenous people of that region, using medicinal plants, diets, and ancestral practices to explore the mind, body, spirit with great results. Michael also found the Wim Hof Method using cold water, breathing exercises, and a change in his mindset as a tool for self-healing and deeper understanding of self. Using the cold water therapy, breath work, and sauna, Michael committed to a daily practice, seeing great results in pain management, improved sleep, inflammation, clarity, peace of mind, energy, and resilience. Using these natural methods and living a life committed to working on himself physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, there never has been a need for a second surgery, pharmaceutical intervention, or pain management. Using lessons and research from his journey into natural and alternative methods, learning from some of the best in their fields, Michael became a Wim Hof Method certified instructor teaching across the U.S. and Mexico, XPT, which is Breath, Move, and Recover coach, combining contrast therapy training, breath work, and pool training to others around the valley. Michael is a teacher by nature and a master's degree in adult education and training. Considers himself a student for life in the area of self-exploration, biohacking, wellness, and ancient practices that have stood the test of time. Michael, it's so good to have you here.
That's a mouthful.
That's definitely a mouthful, but I thought it was appropriate and necessary to tell people who you were.
Yes, thanks for the introduction. That pretty much covers a wide span of my life, so up until the present day. So thank you for having me on your show. I really appreciate it.
Yep, you've had quite the journey. So tell me what it was like growing up in Queens.
Yeah, Queens, New York, the concrete jungle. It was actually a great experience in many ways, and a challenging experience in other ways. Just like, anyone growing up, we're sponges. We're just taking it all in. We're learning from our environment. And my environment was the hustle and bustle of inner city New York. I was born in Jamaica, which is kind of a rough neighborhood, and was raised in mainly Ozone Park and Flushing, which were also kind of rough neighborhoods. And I was raised by a single mom who was raising 4 children on her own. So, mom was doing her best to put food on the table and take care of things. And us siblings, we had to grow up really fast. We had to figure things out for ourselves. We had to get to school, get home from school. And one thing I noticed, I didn't notice till later on, but I realized that I really lacked a lot of discipline and mentorship at a young age. That was something that was really lacking. And the other thing was nature, which is a big part of what we're going to discuss today. New York City doesn't have a lot of nature. I mean, you got Central Park, you got upstate New York, and you got the beaches, but the everyday life, you're just kind of surrounded by buildings and noise and traffic and buses. And I didn't realize until later on in life how important it was to have access to nature and really the healing abilities and the power of nature. So that was early life, and a lot of good things. I mean, I learned how to communicate well. I learned how to figure things out fast. I learned how to sense danger at a young age and figure out, who's playing me and who's not. So you can learn a lot of really good communication skills, but there's also a lot of obstacles as well growing up in that type of environments. High stress, high anxiety, and like I said, I didn't have great role models except for my mom, who was extremely hardworking. And some people in my family as well were good role models, but I lacked that mentorship and discipline for sure.
Now, did you have siblings?
I did, yeah. 3 older sisters.
3 older sisters. So it was you and your 3 older sisters and your mom.
That's right. Yep. So a house full of women in the 80s. So.
I relate to that. It was me and my 2 sisters and my mom. So I was in the middle though, but
really hard to find an open bathroom, right? It's nearly impossible.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so when did you start experimenting with drugs and alcohol?
So I started at an early age, which is funny because later on in life I learned, oh wow, that was really young. But at the time, growing up in that neighborhood, it was like pretty standard. I started drinking at the age of probably 13 years old. The neighborhood parks, the older kids in the neighborhood, they were always at the park. In New York City, it's really big to play handball. And I know it's not too popular out west, but if you watch in the movies, there's always these handball courts. And everybody kind of congregates around the handball courts. And, as a young buck, you kind of wait your turn to play. And if one of the older guys would let you play doubles with him, it was kind of a big deal. And I was actually really good at handball. And so the older guys kind of embraced me, and I would get to hang out with them. And they were already 16, 17, 18 and up. So they were already drinking, smoking weed. And I was surrounded by that at the age of 13. And I was looking up to these guys because these guys were cool. These were the tough guys in the neighborhood. Yeah. They had the pretty girlfriends. They had the clout. And they also kind of helped to keep you safe. Because if people know that these guys like you and you're kind of part of their crew, then other people are going to leave you alone. So there's a lot of like psychological positioning that's kind of happening in that type of environment. So yeah, by the time I was 13, I was already drinking and smoking weed.
Okay. And then when you were in high school, and then you went into high school, were you getting in trouble when you were younger? Like, what was high school like?
Yeah, high school was mixed. I was smart, but I didn't apply myself, and I was bored. I wasn't interested in the curriculum. So yeah, I would pretty much, cut school quite a bit, drink, on lunch breaks or, during school hours. just get by with some passing grades. I was lost. It's the best way I could describe it. I just was lost. I really had no direct path. I didn't know what I wanted to do. Also in the 90s, this was the movement of like the house music scene in New York City. So in New York City, there was all these big nightclubs like the Sound Factory and the Tunnel and the Limelight. These were basically the Studio 54 of its time. So as you would imagine, these places are filled with all kinds of recreational drugs. So by the time I was 16 and 17, I was going into Manhattan, getting into different nightclubs because I was still hanging out with the older guys. The older guys embraced me. They took me under their wing. I was hanging out with them. And that was the era of ecstasy and all of those, what they would call designer drugs. Right. And that was really big hit, in 1997, 98, those years. So I got really heavily into the house music, club music, underground scene as well. So it started off with alcohol and weed and quickly moved to designer drugs and cocaine as well.
Now, where were your 3 older sisters in all of this?
Everybody kind of had a different story, so, you had some sisters that had kind of gone away to college, right? And they were off and gone and doing their own thing. Then you had, other sisters that were working and had boyfriends. And I was the only boy in the house in an Italian-American family. So it's kind of interesting because you kind of get away with a lot. Everyone had this assumption that, Michael does no wrong, or even if he does wrong, like we'll just pretend it didn't happen. And that's common as well. I didn't have that strong father presence in the house to say, hey, I know what you're up to, and, give me some sort of discipline or sit me down and have that talk or anything like that. I was just kind of a wild young man, just going with the flow, living life in the present moment, really. I mean, I had amazing years, to be honest with you. I had some really great years, a lot of fun, a lot of experiences, but those types of behaviors and the drugs especially started to take its toll on me. And I was becoming more and more lost and not really having any sort of clear direction as to where I wanted to go, what I wanted to do, or anything like that. And I set the bar really low for myself as well. I didn't have big goals or anything like that at that time. When I think back, I could notice that.
Now you've had your struggles with anxiety, depression, insomnia. Did that start? Like, when did that start? Did that start at a young age, or when did that start?
It's really hard to tell how those things start or when it starts, because, when you're a teenager and there's just so much going on, you just don't, it's hard for me even to reflect on what my emotional state was, at 18, 19 years old. There were so many ups and downs, right? We were either, going out, drinking, doing drugs, getting to bars, and, just really partying, actually, just a lot of partying. So a lot of highs and lows, but you don't look at that as, oh, that's anxiety, or I'm depressed. I didn't quite know how to define it. I really started to struggle with those things a little bit later on after my military service, and really started to kind of like really classify that, hey, maybe I have a problem here. And there's something I need to do to address that. But that actually came much later on. Same thing with the sleep. When I was a teenager, I slept like I was dead. You'd party hard and you'd sleep all day. Sleep was never really an issue. Sleep became an issue for me after my military career, when I got out and separated from the military service.
Okay. So how did you end up in the Navy? What made you decide to go to the Navy?
Actually, the way it worked out, it was at a bar in the afternoon. So I was 20 years old, sitting in a bar in the afternoon, which was right next to a recruiting station. And one of the military guys came in to get lunch, because the bar served alcohol and lunch, and saw me sitting there by myself drinking. and had a conversation with me and asked if I was interested in military. And at that time, life wasn't going too well. I had, some events that occurred that, I must have been doing some self-reflection at that time in my life. And so I was open-minded. I didn't shut him down. I was like, yeah, sure, why not? I'd be open to see what the military has to offer. And the way he had set it up and described it to me was, hey, you go down, you take a test, you see how well you do on the test. Depending how well you'll do on this test is depending what types of options would be available to you. Now, I was in community college because I always had a high aptitude. I was smart. I just didn't apply myself. So I was in community college at the time. I was passing all my classes with flying colors. It was easy. And I was actually thinking about becoming a firefighter in New York City or doing some sort of blue collar type of job. That was really interesting to me. And when I spoke with the Navy, that opened up some different doors. I scored well on my test, and I had a lot of options. I was also into physical fitness at a very young age. I was always in great shape. Played a lot of sports, whether it be high school football and wrestling, and I got really into weightlifting and bodybuilding and all those types of things. So the recruiters saw me and said, well, you're in great shape. Would you be interested in these job applications for the military that required kind of a high physical fitness readiness? And one of the options was the helicopter search and rescue program. And ultimately, after many discussions with them, that's the road and path that I went down.
And how did you injure your back? Did you injure your back while you were in the Navy?
Yeah, very early on, I had an injury in the military, and I had this debilitating pain that would radiate out of my neck, and I didn't understand it. I never really had pain like that before. It was the first time in my life I ever really had real pain that didn't go away, after a few days. This was pain that was chronic. It was staying with me every single day. And it was a tough decision because you have this physical pain, but you have all of these mental and physical things that you had to do in order to pass your school. So I was in schools command. And I remember there was a school I had to go to, and it was called Aviation Warfare System Operator School. And this is where we learn how to hunt submarines. And you're pretty much in a classroom 8 hours a day, learning about all of these different approaches on how to track and hunt submarines from all over the world, because every country has different types of submarines. Some are nuclear, most are battery powered. There's diesel submarines, battery, electric, and then of course nuclear, which most people are familiar with. Very much Hunt for Red October, if you're familiar with that movie. Actually, my boss was in that movie. There's a famous scene that he's in. So that was one of my primary jobs. But when I was in that school, I was in a lot of pain. But I hid a lot of that pain because I didn't want to be removed out of the program. I didn't want to get put into another career field where maybe I was doing some sort of administrative work or supply work or something like that. I was in a very select group that was going to be tracking submarines, doing combat search and rescue, working with special forces, and also jumping out of helicopters to save people's lives. I had made it through this program. I was halfway through it, and I wasn't going to just let that slip away. So I sucked it up. I took Motrin. I dealt with the discomfort, and I passed all of the necessary requirements, whether it was the push-ups, the sit-ups, the runs, the swims. And the funny thing about pain is that it comes in and out. There's times where it was debilitating, and I would just be holding my neck for the entire class, and my teachers didn't quite know what to do with me, but I just sucked it up and dealt with it. And then there was times where it really just kind of dissipate, and I really wouldn't feel it for a few months at a time, and I would think it's gone. So it's this kind of thing that just plagued me for years and would come in and out, in and out, in and out. And I had no idea how to explain that or what that was. until much later on in my life when I started to learn more about psychosomatic pain, mind-body inflammation, and all those other things that I'm sure we'll get into.
Okay. And so how did you end up, so how long were you in the Navy for?
I served a 5-year contract, and the 5-year contract was started in 1999 and ended in 2004. But obviously a lot happened in 1999 to 2004 because, right out of training, I got sent to a squadron and we were getting ready for deployment. And sure enough, as we're kind of gearing up, training for our scheduled normal deployment, that's when 9/11 happened. And that was September 11, 2001. And I was already basically on an aircraft carrier heading west towards Afghanistan as early as November of 2001. We were one of the first ships to get there and to start participating in the theater at that time, which was Operation Enduring Freedom. And I got there very early on, and we were flying missions in and out of Pakistan, Afghanistan, and supporting all of the waters of the North Arabian Sea.
Yep.
There's a lot of shipping vessels in and out of there. So we were doing all kinds of different things, from intelligence work and boarding shipping vessels to maintaining the seas there, making sure that there's no submarines in the area from Iran or anybody else that wanted to kind of maybe get involved. So yeah, it was wartime. And it was getting a lot of publicity too, because, everybody was super patriotic at that time. The whole country was, in a way, kind of united, which is very different from what it is right now. So we had all kinds of publicity. I mean, I had Jay Leno on my ship. He spent 1 week. He did a full special. We had Tom Brokaw. I got to, fly in a helicopter with Tom Brokaw, and he was filming some sort of event. I think History Channel was doing something. Pamela Anderson wound up coming out to the aircraft carrier to do signings. It was just like this, it's kind of a big show. It was very interesting to reflect back on it. But yeah, I was there for all that.
Okay. And so you hid this pain the entire time.
I hid it, yes. Yeah, I hid the pain.
You just sucked it up.
I sucked it up. I mean, the doctors do, because I would go and tell them. But in the military, there's a lot of fakers. There's a lot of fake pain. I hate to say it, but there is. A lot of guys that want to get out of stuff. We call them, sick call warriors. They were they didn't want to get involved in the physical training. So they would, this hurts, that hurts, And there's a lot of real injuries too, don't get me wrong. But so it's, they'll very easily just give you some pharmaceutical medication and kind of move you on your way. And I was okay with that because, like I said, I wasn't trying to get out of work. I wanted to keep up with the pack. And so I did that. I kept up with the pack, and I did what I needed to do to continue to fly and continue to operate. And I was really good at what I did, and the leadership really liked me. And I was actually climbing up the rank very fast, becoming a flight instructor, a rescue swimmer instructor, and then also had a couple of rescues under my belt as well. So my career, my Navy career was going really well. And I had also been selected as Air Crewman of the Year for the entire United States Navy at one time. So, everything was falling into place. So I wasn't willing to let all of that go so that I could sit behind some sort of desk and, do some sort of administrative work. So I sucked it up.
And then when did your back really start bothering you? So you finished the Navy in 2004, and when did you start thinking, man, I need to do something about my back because it's really bothering me?
Yeah, so after the Navy, I separated. I went into the corporate world, which is really common. They call it from Navy blue to corporate gray. It's a good transition for military because it's very structured, corporate environment. And I actually was supporting the military. I worked for the Office of Military and Veteran Affairs at the time. And I also was kind of working my way up in that career, going back to school. You know, I went and finished my undergraduate degree, and then I wound up doing a master's degree, and then I went and did a second master's degree. So I was like an overachiever. I was just taking it all in at that time in my life. But I was still having the ins and outs of the pain, where at certain stages of my life, I was feeling little to no pain. And then certain stages of my life, it was really bothering me. So I started going to doctors here in Phoenix and Scottsdale area, and I was getting a lot of different opinions. And the one thing they all had in common is it was all pharmaceutical based. You know, it was lots of painkillers, lots of anti-inflammatory type of pills, lots of muscle relaxers, lots of steroid injections, which were like the pain management clinics. I was doing all of it, and sometimes it was effective temporarily, usually, but ultimately the pain kept haunting me, and I was really trying to tell me something, that's for sure. But I wasn't changing my habits either, so I don't want to be a victim here, you know, like here I am, you know, and everything's all at me. I wasn't changing my habits. I wasn't taking care of my body. I wasn't taking care of my mind. I wasn't taking care of my spirit. I was still drinking very heavily on the weekends. That was just part of the culture. You know, it's like, you know, 2004, 2005, 2006, Scottsdale, you know, everything's booming. There's lots of business. Everybody had money. I was making good money as well. And what else? I was not taking care of my body, because even though I was working out and lifting weights, I mean, I wasn't really stretching. I wasn't, you know, doing any sort of flexibility training. I wasn't doing anything to help my situation therapeutically. So I was just kind of pumping iron and, you know, thinking that that's healthy and good. And although I had lots of muscles and I was, you know, strong, it wasn't necessarily healthy. But these are all things that were basically my, how could I describe it? This was like my armor, you know, all of these things were part of my armor. They were part of my mask. It's the mask that I wore. It's the mask that I showed people, you know, I wanted them to, it's the piece of me that I wanted other people to see, you know, that I was this ex-military, successful business guy, well-educated, had money in my pocket. I had no interest in being vulnerable, and I had no really interest in sharing the fact that I was in pain, that I had sleep issues, that I may have had anxiety and depression. Those types of things I wasn't sharing with anybody. I kept them all to myself until they got too problematic, where I really had to take some action. And that point came when I started going to a chiropractor. I learned that the pain quickly turned into complete numbness for a period of time. And at first I was happy because I was like, well, the pain is gone.
Yeah.
But I was losing all functionality. So I was losing the strength in my hands. I was losing my balance. I was losing just feeling. Ultimately, I was losing feeling. And that had me really concerned, of course, as it would anyone. It had my doctors concerned. So they sent me to a specialist, a neurologist, and they thought I had multiple sclerosis because I was losing basically logical function. My body would shake out of control. I had tons of muscle tremors. I had loss of feeling, neuropathy. I had something called illness. All of these things were happening. And so my health was declining really fast. And I went in to go see a surgeon shortly after that appointment, once they found out that I did not have multiple sclerosis, which was great news. But I also found out that my spinal cord was being choked. My spinal cord has been being choked, and I was losing spinal fluid, and it was leaking, and I was losing all kinds of motor function. So they needed to give me an emergency surgery at that time, and that's exactly what I did. I had emergency surgery. And shortly after the surgery, I started to get better. Yeah, things started to get better.
Okay, so that
for
was
a
the
moment.
first surgery. And then what was the recovery like after your first surgery? Tell me what unfolded after your first surgery.
Well, after the first surgery, so when you have surgery, the interesting thing about surgery is that everyone's willing to give you drugs.
Right.
Right. So,
Right.
So it's like, oh, this is interesting. And so I started to take, I think, Percocets at the time. And it's a painkiller, I believe. Yeah, Percocets. And so I was taking medication, but I was also kind of, I was still keeping up with bad habits, which was, drinking too much on the weekends and stuff like that, Didn't really have that self-discipline that I really needed. So ultimately, the combination of that was bad. I didn't make a lot of really healthy changes. I mean, I took the protocols that they gave me, which was lay off the weights and the physical fitness and recover. And so I did that. And for a period of time, I actually did feel better. I did feel better. I didn't have that same loss of function, and my body recovered really fast. I noticed that my genetics and my healing abilities were good, and I recovered really fast. But about 9 months, 10 months later, so maybe a year, somewhere around there, I forget now, I started to have all the same symptoms. I was having throbbing pain from my neck, more loss of function in my hands. My hand strength became really weak. And I was also having a lot of muscle atrophy. And that was really interesting. So, of course, I have to go back. I have to see the surgeon. You have to tell him what's going on. And it was right back to pharmaceuticals. I was getting more of the steroid pain management clinic injections, right back on the muscle relaxers, right back on the anti-inflammatory pills. And because I had so much medication for such a prolonged period of time, it was actually starting to affect my organs, because my blood work was coming back with like kind of elevated, numbers and readings and stuff. So once again, I was inflamed, I was puffy, I was retaining water, I was weak, and I was having pain. And they recommended me to do a second surgery. And at that point, I just said I had enough. That was it. I'm not going to do a second surgery. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to find another way. And this was a turning point in my life. This was the point where I was starting to actually look within. And I had an interest in alternative therapies in medicine. I was exploring that. Very basic, but some people had come into my life to introduce some new concepts to me. So ultimately, I never went and did that second surgery, and I went down the rabbit hole of natural therapies.
And so you said people came into your life and just opened your eyes to the possibility of something different.
Yes,
okay.
Exactly. Possibility of something different, different way of thinking. And the fact that I had all of these unresolved issues inside of me that really needed to be addressed. So that was critical for me. And it led me to a lot of different things. I started to explore myself. This was really the first time in my life I could honestly say that I took an interest in trying to find out what was going on inside. I was interested in learning about me for once. I wanted to know who I was, what my journey was, what my trauma was, what was unresolved. I started to slowly break down the ego as well, and even really learn about what the ego was. It wasn't even part of my vocabulary at the time. So I started to do different things. I became interested in workshops. I went and did Landmark. I'm not sure if you're familiar with them, but I went and did Landmark, and that opened up my mind to, seeing things from a new perspective. And understanding, how important the power of perception was. I started to learn about people like Eckhart Tolle. I was reading his books and understanding the mind, the present moment, and how if you're spending too much of your time thinking about the future, that will lead to kind of anxious or anxiety. And if you're spending too much time reflecting about the past, that will lead you into depression. Mm-hmm. So I really started to understand how much control we actually had, or influence we had over our life, and how important the present moment was, and why that was so powerful. So that attracted me to meditation. And meditation was one of those things that, everywhere I looked, everyone was doing it. Like, there was no bad data on meditation. It was just like, it was one of those things that was universally good for you. But I couldn't do it. I would sit there as if I was meditating, but honestly, I had such a busy mind. My mind was just thinking about stuff. What do I need to do later? Or how long has this been? It just wasn't effective for me. But I wound up listening to a podcast at that time, and that had introduced me to floating, which was the sensory deprivation tanks. And that really helped out True Rest is one of them in the Valley. Exactly. Okay. Yep. Float spas. And that helped because it helped to take a lot of the sensory input away. So I started to learn about, this journey of going within. And that took me down many different rabbit holes. Some very good therapies, but I tried it all. I was just interested. I was exploring. I was trying out different things. Some things I went to where it wasn't very effective. I spent a lot of money, and I would have a session with somebody, and it wasn't that effective. But then some things were very effective. But the most important thing, and why I share this, is because I was getting my own feedback. I was trying things out, figuring out what worked for me, getting my own feedback, and that was taking me to different places as well. So ultimately, it led me to learning about indigenous cultures and their ways and their spirituality and medicine, but also took me to the Wim Hof Method and biohacking and all that other stuff that I'm very much into now. So,
well, and it sounds, what I'm hearing you say is that you learned how to be present, you learned how to pay attention, because the Western way, or the way that was prescribed to you, was to go have another surgery and take a pill and go through pain management.
Yes.
It leads to lots of other issues. And you decided, no, I'm going to be present. I'm going to pay attention. And that allowed you to try all of these different things out.
Yeah, there was a book called The Mind-Body Connection by Dr. Sarno. And there was a concept that I never even explored before. And basically, that psychosomatic pain can actually cause physical pain in the body. And nobody had told me that before. No one ever said, hey, Michael, maybe you need to, sit with your thoughts, or find out what's going on emotionally, or really explore that aspect of it, which was more mental, emotional healing. Everything was, you're like a car, like a piece of machinery, where you, just like your alternator in your car. If your alternator is messed up, you remove it, you rebuild it, and you put it back in, and you get the car back on the road. So I always looked at, medical practice as very much like a machinery, like engineering. And then these types of people, these Dr. Sarno, Eckhart Tolle, Edgar Cayce, they started to open up my mind to mental, emotional, mind-body connection kind of stuff, and how impactful that was on pain management.
Right. Okay. So it was recommended that you go and get another back surgery. You decided against that. How long did you have to deal with this pain of your back? Or how long did it take before you were actually able to work through it and not experience pain in you? That seems like a pretty hard thing to do.
Actually, it was very quick.
Okay.
Once I started to change my mindset and my perception on pain, things started to dissipate. And just like I said, how the pain would come and go, I was finding out that there was more go than there was coming, you know, which was good. And every time I reflected back and I said, okay, Michael, you're going to reflect back in your meditation today, and you're going to think about a time where you were experiencing the most pain. Okay, go back to those days where you're experiencing the most pain. What was going on in your life at that time? And I would look back and I would think back to that time and what was going on in my life. I had high stress. I was making poor decisions. I wasn't treating myself well. And I was, you know, had bad thinking. My thinking was toxic, really. I had bad thinking, just self-love, call it what you'd like. And it's interesting. So once I started to change that and make the shift into better thought pattern, healthier thought patterns, more self-care, less expectations of myself, participate in less toxic kind of behavior, or like invitations, like that big event that they have every year at the Bird's Nest and all these other big events. I just said, I'm not going. People are like, come on, we got to go. Like everyone's going, it's going to be fun. It's going to be a day drinking from, 10 a.m. till midnight, whatever. I didn't go. I just stopped participating. I started saying no, and that really helped. So I changed my perspective and perception. And honestly, I started to feel better more, although the pain was not gone and the neuropathy and those types of things were not gone. I was just learning that, whoa, I have some influence over this. That's when my body started to tell me that I was on the right path. And I started to actually believe that this stuff really worked. It wasn't just, foo-foo stuff that was, in some, self-help book. It worked. And I started to believe in it, and I started to trust it. And that really helped me out. That really helped me to keep me on the path, for sure.
Well, yeah, I mean, the mind is a powerful thing. And it's, as they say, what you believe or don't believe, it's true.
Yes. What is it? Whether you think you can or think you can't, either way you're right, or something
either
like
way
that.
You're right. Yeah. I mean, something along those lines.
I like that.
And it's all about your mind and what you think and what you put your energy into thinking. A lot of times it comes true. And it's like, what do they say that most medications, and I think I'm making this up, they're like percent placebo effect.
Yeah, high percent is placebo effect, which no one talks about.
Yeah, it's a very high percent placebo effect. It's all in our mind. And someone that thinks they're sick a lot is probably going to be sick a lot.
Yes. And the beautiful thing is there's actually a science to that. It's not just this notion of power of positive thinking. There's actually science. And the guy that I think is doing the best job of really describing how that works and how the DNA works and how our genetics works. And this is kind of epigenetics, how important the environment is on our life. We always were told that, our genetics dictate so many different things in our life. So actually learning more and more and more that our inherited genetics actually only make up a small portion of things, that our environment has a bigger impact on our genetics. And this term, epigenetics, Dr. Bruce Lipton talks about it a lot in his research and work, and also Dr. Joe Dispenza talking exactly how the placebo effect actually works from a scientific perspective. And it's really a beautiful thing, because what it does is it gives you back the power, because your environment is not just, is it cold outside? Is it hot outside? It's all kinds of things. It's the people you hang out with energetically, whether you're getting involved in dramatic type of things, dramatic type of people, toxic relationships, your perception on your situation. I mean, we all know somebody who has everything. They have the money, they have the lifestyle, they have the career, the title, but they're miserable inside, and they're depressed, and they're anxious, and they're suicidal. And then we all know the person who has little to nothing of material wealth, but has that can-do, happy, I love life mentality, and they're happy. So our perception of life has so much influence on everything. And guess who controls that? We do. And that's the beauty in this type of work. We are not a victim anymore of our environment, our surroundings, our situation. We actually are in the driver's seat. We get to turn the wheel. We get to change direction. We get to hit the brakes or hit the gas pedal. We get to influence our life and our outcomes. And that's the things that you don't learn in school. You don't learn at the university. Like I told you, I went back to school. I have a bachelor's. I have 2 separate master's degrees. They don't teach these things there. These are things that you have to go digging for yourself. And sometimes life is going to push you in that direction if you're not getting the signal, you know, and unfortunately, sometimes it has to push you into a bad situation where you have to experience some pain and some downfall because you're not getting the memo. And that's what happened with me. I was thick-headed, and I wasn't interested in showing this vulnerable side of myself because, you know, I just had a big ego, and I had to learn much later on in life, which is the lesson I would have loved to have learned earlier, that vulnerability is power. It's pure power. And that's why we're so drawn to people who are vulnerable or willing to be vulnerable. And we're so drawn to people who know how to express themselves freely. It's just one of those things that humans are just in awe of because we know it's not an easy thing to do. And some people are naturals, and some people work really hard to develop those sorts of skills. But they're good skills to have.
Definitely. Definitely. I mean, it's much easier to not much easier. It seems much safer just to put the walls up.
We think it's much safer. Yeah.
We think it's much safer. And it's, you know, put the walls up, not be vulnerable. And because you don't want to get hurt, or you've got hurt in the past.
Exactly.
And so we put up the walls, and we're not vulnerable, and we don't truly connect with other people.
Exactly.
And conversations are very much on the surface.
Yeah.
And there's no, I mean, that doesn't lead to fulfillment, because that's what we all want. We all want fulfillment, right?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, think about this. I mean, you know, you can have those up. Sure. You can have your wall. You can have your armor. Yeah. It's a safe place. It's safe. And it's okay. You know, you can have it. But you can't really experience growth if you're not willing to be uncomfortable. So there's always a give and a take. You know, you're not going to have this growth that you might be desiring or reading about or watching in a documentary or film or whatever is inspiring you at that moment. You're not going to be able to have that growth if you're not willing to be uncomfortable. Just like you're not going to be able to really find true love, whether it's with yourself or external, have true love without being willing to be vulnerable. It's just, you can't have your cake and eat it too. So, you know, you have to essentially, I think life will always move you in the direction to try to break down those walls. And sometimes it's more subtle, but sometimes it could be really dramatic. You know, it might be that car accident that, you know, that sets you into a place where you have to really spend time to reflect on your life, you know, because you're in a, you know, tied up in the bed in the hospital for a period of time, or you're nursing a broken leg, and your life been trying to tell you, slow down, slow down, slow down, slow down. You were getting all of these hints along the way. You know, people were telling you, you know, you're getting subliminal messages in all aspects of your life, but you didn't want to listen. So now you're forced to slow down, and now you can't move. So now what are you going to do? You're going to go within. So life will push you in that direction. I learned that, you know, it doesn't always have to be so dramatic. You know, I don't want to get hit in the head with a baseball bat every time I need to learn a lesson. You know, I would rather just get a soft little nudge and just say, oh, okay, I got it. Thank you. I, you know, appreciate that, and get right back on course. So I try to stay away from the baseball bats these days.
Okay, now let's move on. Tell me about Wim Hof. How did you discover Wim Hof?
The way I discovered Wim Hof was the Vice documentary called Becoming, what was it? Superhuman or something of that nature. It's just a very famous Vice documentary on his life. And I was like, wow, I was just fascinated, honestly. I just thought this guy was interesting. I liked his character. I loved this aspect of the medical, influencing your immune system and all these types of things, because I had already been going down that rabbit hole and learning about health, mental health, physical health, emotional health, learning about science, anatomy, physiology, all of these things that were really subjects that, I had to go back into the books to go relearn them, because they just kind of touched on them in school. So I was ready for his work. I was prepared for that moment to learn about this method. But I was also very much into esoteric stuff because, I learned that healing isn't just, the mind and the body, that spirit is actually of equal importance. Mind, body, spirit, balance, finding balance in all things, mind, body, spirit. So I was already into esoteric stuff. I was into spirituality. I was researching, I was searching, I was finding. And what I learned in my journey was I was working on my mind. I was working on my body as I started to make, good, healthy changes, of course. But spiritually, I was a big fat zero. I wasn't working on my spirit at all. And that's mainly because I kind of left religion a long time ago. I just lost a little faith in that process. Grew up Italian, American, Catholic. And I just kind of left it back in New York. I never really took it with me. So spirit is equally important. I really want to stress that. It's really important. So the Wim Hof method was one of those things that I saw as a very complete method. Just by practicing the method, you can access your mind, body, and your spirit all in one practice. The 3 pillars of the Wim Hof method help you to connect that. And I did many different therapies, and methods, should I say, and techniques. And like I said, some were very effective, some were not. What I liked about the Wim Hof method, it worked immediately, and it was simple, and it was cost effective. So I implemented right away. And I started to go down the rabbit hole of learning more about the science. And that took me to really learning and understanding a lot about our immune system, which is great because all of that knowledge that I acquired really helped me for this time in our lives, which is this pandemic, and it's all about immune health. I mean, if you are starting from zero on understanding the immune system and immune health, you're already behind. I was already ahead. I was able to prepare my body, my mind, my spirit, my immune system for these times, and it has served me well. And it's allowed me to teach many other people and help them in their journey during these difficult times.
So, okay, with the Wim Hof method, so you've got the cold water therapy, you've got the breath work, and what's the 3rd pillar?
Commitment, which is also known as mindset, which is the pillar that is actually the most important. If you think about Wim's story, Wim hiked Mount Everest in his shorts. I mean, it's a great feat. It's extremely dangerous. He's beneath the polar ice caps. He's ran a marathon in the African desert with no water. He's done a lot of very interesting things. He had 26 Guinness records. Wim was not able to do all of these things because he acclimated to the cold, and has some sort of adaptation to cold, or because he knows this magic breathing exercise that can automatically make a human superhuman. No, what makes Wim Hof so unique, in my experience, in my opinion, is the power of his mind. He's got a very strong mind, powerful mind. He's got strong commitment and very strong discipline. And I believe that discipline is the key to happiness. When we say what we're going to do and we follow through with it, that really helps us to feel better, more happy, and more alive, and all of those things. But the 3 pillars of the Wim Hof Method are breathing exercises, a very specific one, commitment, and cold therapy, all in combination.
Okay, so of the 3, which do you think is the first one that a person should learn more about or experience?
Well, the first thing to touch on is really all 3 all at once, right? Because, what you can do is very easily go to a workshop and learn about everything. And I teach locally here in the Valley, a 5-hour fundamentals course that people can go to. So you will learn how to do the breathing exercise, how to apply the commitment and discipline to your exercise, and what is the science and the theory of the cold water therapy. And you have access to all of it. You have access to it by doing a breathing exercise, which you could do from the comfort of your own home, in your bed, in a safe space. You have the ability to follow through on your commitments, to actually do it on a daily basis and put it into action to see how it actually impacts your life in a positive way. And you have access to cold showers. And cold showers are going to be out the door soon because the weather's starting to warm up here in Phoenix. But in anywhere else around the country, cold showers will actually linger for quite a while. But of course, you have Optimize, which has cold water 7 days a week, which you're well aware of. Yeah. So I recommend doing all 3 because in combination, they all work. And it's a practice. So you're not going to be perfect the first time you do it. You implement it and you get better and you get better. And all of these techniques, what's amazing about the breathing, as you've known, you've done, you've come to my classes before, and the cold water, what do they both have in common? They take your attention inward, right? They allow you to bring your attention inward, taking away all of the busyness of the day and the mind and all that kind of chatter that's out there, and have you focus on yourself. And that's a good practice for humans.
When you're jumping into 32 degrees water ice bath, you're not thinking about anything else.
No,
you have to completely surrender.
Yes, and if you don't, you suffer.
You suffer if you don't. Yeah, exactly.
It's a great lesson. It's like accept, right, real time, or suffer. Go ahead, suffer if you'd like. You can suffer if you want. You might learn something by suffering, which, a lot of my life has been suffering, and I've learned many things. Or you can learn to accept and surrender and find peace with it. So it's a great training ground for the mind, body, and spirit. And that's why I use it 7 days a week, as you do as well.
Right. So with breath work, and I like myself, before I actually started doing breath work, I think a lot of people are like, well, I know how to breathe. I know how to do breath work. I breathe every day. I thought the same thing. Right. And people don't, and I didn't realize it either. Like, to do breath work, it's actually work. It's actually work. And so what's the benefit of why would someone want to put this energy into doing breath work? Because it actually is work. And most people breathe very shallow throughout the day. So I guess first, what is the negative associated with the very shallow breaths that most people take throughout the day?
Yeah, shallow breathing is a type of stress. I mean, if you really think about it, what happens when you step into the cold water? You breathe very rapid and very shallow. What happens if you get a phone call in the middle of the day and it's terrible news, and you get this emotional, like, panicky kind of feeling because you just got some bad news that you lost your job, or you lost a loved one, or you lost anybody, right? Some sort of loss or grief of some sort. So it's a sign of stress. I mean, your breathing it's what's so beautiful about learning about breath work, which, the name can turn a lot of people off, just the name alone. It's like, what does that even mean? Breath work, what is that? There's other names, breathing exercises. Sure, you can do that. But then people start to think, what is this Lamaze class, like for pregnant women?
And it kind of is like Lamaze class.
Yeah, I mean, you're learning how to breathe to modulate pain, right? That's what they're doing.
Not that I've ever taken a Lamaze class or know anything about it. I've heard that breath work is similar to a Lamaze class.
Yeah, you're learning how to modulate pain and different things. I'm not too familiar with what they teach in that class, but ultimately, for the viewers out there that are curious about breath work, you have two different types of people, right? You got people who are interested, the spiritual aspect of the breathing exercises, and they know that there's like something there. And then you have the science. I want to know about the science. For the science folks, you have access to your autonomic nervous system. So your nervous system responds to the type of breathing that you do. So when you inhale, right, you're activating the sympathetic nervous system. When you exhale, you're activating the parasympathetic mode of the nervous system, which would be like the brake of the nervous system. The sympathetic nervous system would be like the gas pedal. When you have access to your autonomic nervous system, that means you also have access to your heart rate. So if I breathe really fast, right, and really shallow, my heart rate will go up. If I breathe really slow and really calm, my heart rate will go down. And most people don't realize that they have access to this because they think, it's automatic. I don't have to tell my heart to beat. I don't have to tell myself to take a breath, right? It's all automatic. And it's true. It is automatic. Thank God. Because if you had to think about every time you needed to take a breath or every time your heart needed to beat, it would take all of your attention and focus. So you wouldn't really have much energy to do anything else. So it is automatic, but just like a car, you can switch to manual mode at any time. And when you switch to manual mode and you start to focus on your inhales, your exhales, and change the way you breathe, right? By extending an exhale or maybe breathing more rapid, then you start to influence other systems of the body, which would be your brain waves, right? And also your heart rate. So if I breathe very shallow and fast, my heart rate's going to go up and I'm going to most likely arouse, have a little bit more brain arousal, and my heart rate's going to go up and my sympathetic nervous system is going to be activated, which means it might release different types of hormones into my bloodstream. If I breathe very calm and very slow, where I'm maybe breathing in for 8 seconds and breathing out for 8 seconds, obviously it's really slow, I'm calming everything down. Now my brain waves are starting to calm down. The frequency is starting to come down. You're getting into alpha brain waves, theta brain waves, and then my heart rate is also going to come down. You also have influence over your blood pressure. You can, increase blood pressure and decrease blood pressure also by the way you breathe. So what it does, learning about breath work, for anyone that's interested, what it does is it puts you into the driver's seat of this wonderful, amazing machine that we've been given, this body and this operating system of our mind that, guess what? Nobody gave us directions. We weren't born with, hey, here's the operating manual for this machine. You spend a whole life trying to figure out how this thing works. And we only have scratched the surface on what our body is capable of. And Wim Hof has shown the world that we are much, much more capable of what we think we can. And that's the beauty of breath work. We can talk about breath work for a whole show, but for anyone interested, you have access to how the machine works if you learn how to control your breathing, optimize your breathing, and you can really have a beautiful, powerful influence on your states of stress, your ability to sleep, your ability to relax, recover, and also your ability to drive energy up as well. And you can actually make your own medicine, which is even beautiful too. And I know that sounds like crazy, but this is science. This is actually scientific research to show that, breathing exercises release epinephrine, which has an effect, a positive effect on inflammation. So your body is a pharmacy. And when you start to learn how to operate this machine, you get to once again be the driver and not be driven, by somebody who's stolen the car and is running amok in the neighborhood. And now you're having to pay the bills for that. So you get to operate this beautiful, wonderful machine that we have called the body.
Well, and the other thing that happens with breath work is you can bring your body from an acidic state to an alkaline state, right? It's like people talk about drinking pH water. because they want to get to an alkaline state, or even eating foods that are not acidic, foods that are alkaline. We take 25,000 breaths per day. So breathing and bringing your body to an alkaline state through breathing and breath work seems like it makes way more sense. You take 25,000 breaths a day. It's way easier, right?
Yeah. So the ancients say that, we only have so many breaths in a lifetime, which is kind of this esoteric principle of, don't breathe too much. And the science actually supports too that don't breathe too much. So one of the main benefits of learning breathing exercises is actually it will help you to breathe less. You want to breathe less. So if you were just to take an inhale for 5 seconds and exhale for 5 seconds, right? That's a 10-second period, right? Multiply that, how many breaths are you taking in 1 minute? It's only 6 breaths, right? So that's not many breaths in 1 minute. Well, look at a dog. How many breaths does a dog or a cat take? They breathe so rapid. Even when they're in a relaxed state, they breathe super rapid. I mean, if they're laying on the floor, their belly is like moving like this. They breathe a lot. I think they take like 20, 30 breaths a minute or something like that. It's very fast. And then look at a turtle. A turtle takes like, I forget how many breaths per minute, like 4 or something, even less. They don't breathe much. Look at the lifespan of a turtle. Look at the lifespan of a dog or a cat, right? It's not very long compared to a turtle. So breathing less is the key to, one of the keys. There's many keys, but one key to longevity. Breathe less. And by focusing your attention on your breathing will automatically cause you to breathe less. Talking less actually makes you breathe less. That's why our Native American brothers and sisters, they talk a lot less in many ways. They listen more, talk less, which we all know is like a good skills, like it's important, right? Also, then we could get into all the CO2 oxygen stuff. When you talk a lot, you're scrubbing CO2 and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, learn how to breathe less. And it doesn't mean holding your breath or anything like that. It just means really slowing down your breathing and this being like really a natural rhythm. So a lot of the breathing techniques that are out there, like ramp up the nervous system, ramp down the nervous system. But ultimately, what they will assist you with is your body can utilize oxygen more efficiently in a high CO2 environment, and you have a higher CO2 tolerance, and you will basically have to breathe less, but providing deeper, fuller breaths, which are providing oxygen into our cells, because all our cells need oxygen all the time. It's one of the things that we cannot go without for very long. I mean, we can go out without food for quite a long time. We can go without water for a significant amount of time, but we cannot go without breathing for, we're starting to get to like a minute and a half, like, you're in trouble. So, so very important breathing exercises, and I'm a big proponent of that, of course.
So now James Nestor wrote the book Breath, and you can see it behind you.
Yeah, I see it there.
And so he talks about over breathing.
Yes.
Like people overeat, people overbreathe.
Yes.
What does that mean? Yeah,
they're taking too many breaths within the day, right? They're the shallow breathing, right?
Short,
unconscious
shallow breath.
Shallow breaths means you're going to breathe more, which is going to put your nervous system in a more of a sympathetic tone, which is the fight or flight tone of the nervous system, which means you're going to be producing more stress-related hormones, which are going to negatively impact the body. When your body's in this chronic stress state for long periods of time, now you have inflammation problems that can eventually turn into autoimmune problems, which can potentially turn into cancer problems, because everything is, harmonious. Cancer is basically your body's out of harmony, and cancer is competing, with your body for resources. Autoimmune is this over-replication. Body's not in harmony. So we want to find balance in all things. We want to find this homeostasis. And stress is really any time our body's out of homeostasis. But how fast we rebound back to stress is really important. So it's good to train your body's stress response with stress. But yeah, shallow breathing, back to your original question, breathing too much, over breathing, they basically will lead to a shorter expiration date. So learn how to breathe less. And that book is a great reference because they teach the 5-second inhale, 5-second exhale as one of the techniques.
Right. And I mean, I can tell you, I've been doing breath work for a couple of years. And I think over the last year, very first thing I do in the morning before I get out of bed is I'll do 3 cycles of the Wim Hof Method. And then I pray, and then I meditate for 10 minutes. And I'll tell you what, like my blood cells are filled with oxygen, and I'm just like, I'm wide awake. I'm awake by the time I get out of bed, and I wake up really early. And that's even if I don't get a lot of sleep. I'll do my breath work, and I'm awake, and I'm alert, and I'm ready to go.
Yeah, it enhances all that, providing more energy because of the ATP reaction. It helps you to be more focused. It has the anti-inflammatory effect, which is the epinephrine that you're releasing from that type of breathing exercise that you're doing. There's a lot of great benefits to the breathing exercise. But yeah, it's also great because, like you said, your second thing is you pray, which is, affirmations, right? You're putting, the spoken word into the universe, and spoken word is vibration and frequency, and that helps to kind of call in good things into your life. And then that meditative state, it's very hard to get into the meditative state if your mind is extremely busy.
Right.
If your mind's busy and you're thinking about a million different things, your brain is in a beta wave stress-like state. Try to meditate, it's almost impossible. But when you do breathing exercises prior to the meditation, it allows your brains to get into the lower frequencies, the more alpha, theta wave frequencies. That's around like the 5 to 8 hertz for theta. I think alpha is just above that. So it makes the meditation a lot deeper, a lot better, a lot more beneficial. So it's a really good tool.
Now, the other thing I realized, okay, so when I do the Wim Hof Method, right, I realized, so there was a period of time where I do 2 minutes on my first breath hold on the exhale would be 2 minutes, second, 2.5, third,
Sure.
3.5, even longer, right?
Yeah.
And I was also able to stay in the cold plunge for a longer period of time. Okay, and then a few months ago, I realized I wasn't able to hold my breath as long, and it was a struggle to get to 2 minutes.
Got it.
And I was not able to stay in the cold plunge as long. And then I read Wim Hof's latest book, and I realized that he was talking about going from an acidic state to an alkaline state. And then he also talked about how Olympic athletes and professional athletes, they are more at an alkaline state, which makes it to where they can withhold more pain.
Yeah.
They can tolerate more pain. And then also, I also realized that I wasn't belly breathing, because that was the other thing I read. I was being lazy. I was still doing the breath work, but I was being lazy. And because I was lazy and I wasn't belly breathing, I wasn't able to hold my breath as long on the exhale. I was not at the alkaline state. I think this is what I make up about it anyways. And I wasn't able to stay in the cold plunge as long, which part of it I'm sure was in my mind.
Yeah, so there's some things that I could kind of touch on there. The alkaline state is interesting. So without getting into all the science, because it gets actually really scientific, really confusing. But when your body temporarily, or should I say your blood, goes alkaline, it's called respiratory alkalosis. For a short period of time, they've measured in Wim Hof's blood during some of the studies that his blood pH increases. And anytime your blood pH increases above neutral, which is 7.3, you're in more of an alkaline state. I think they measured him at like 7.8 or so slightly alkaline. And most people are like, well, what does that mean? What is that doing? You know, that's a good thing, right? Because there's all this craze about, you know, alkaline everything, alkaline water, alkaline food, being more alkaline. But, you know, to be honest with you, you don't want everything to be alkaline because your stomach is acidic for a reason. You know, it's acidic because it breaks down food and it does its job that way. You know, so there's different aspects of the body that are probably benefit from being more alkaline, and there's different aspects of the body that benefit from being more acidic. But when your blood pH becomes alkaline temporarily, respiratory alkalosis, your body has the ability to bypass certain pain receptors. And there's a whole science of how that works that I won't get into. But that temporary ability helps to modulate pain. And that's why the hyperventilation techniques used probably in Lamar's classes and also in the Wim Hof, that kind of rapid breathing, you're scrubbing CO2. So by over breathing, CO2 starts to decrease and oxygen increases, but that doesn't mean that all that oxygen becomes available. It's actually just free roaming. But when that's happening, you're changing the chemistry in the body. So that's making the body temporarily more alkaline for the time being, which has a positive impact on pain modulation. So hopefully, I know that was a lot of information there, but essentially that's how it works. So it's a good thing and it's effective. Now, as for why I can't stay in the ice bath longer, there's a lot of different factors that can be, you know, where we are emotionally, mentally at that time, our ability to let go and surrender, our ability to go within and not be thinking about stuff. There's just too many factors to say, oh, it's because of this. But, you know, I have the same problem. You know, I've been practicing this. I teach this. And there's times that I have a hard time holding my breath, right, for long periods of time, or my ice baths may not be as long, which I don't really subscribe to the idea of like long ice baths either. You know, I think 2 to 3 minutes is plenty. But I think it's just human, and it's what's most important of all is to always trust your body.
Right. Okay, and then so now let's talk about cold water therapy. What are the benefits of cold water therapy and ice baths?
So cold water therapy has been around for thousands of years, although it's like common and trendy now, and cryotherapy's out there, and lots of people are posting pictures of doing ice baths on Instagram. I want people to know this is nothing new. It's super old, okay? And I could get into all the different cultures that did cold water therapy, but let's be honest, hot water heaters are not that old. So everyone was actually taking a cold shower not that long ago, right? Hot water heaters are kind of a thing of, you know, the present. 100 years ago, there was no hot heaters, at least I don't think there was. But so cold showers have been around forever. But cold water bathing has also been around forever. And you have different cultures that talk about cold water therapy for spiritual kind of aspects, right? There's different native groups that use cold water therapy for shamanic kind of spiritual healing, or should I say preparation for other ceremonies that they would do. They stated that it cleansed the body and restored the body's vital energy. And you know, just from coming to Optimize, and when you get out of the ice bath, you feel, boom, you feel electric, right? You feel that the energy, and people get kind of drawn to that feeling. They want more of that, and that's why, you know, they'll keep doing it, you know. And there's science to support, you know, what that is. There's, you know, ATP production and all that kind of stuff. But the core benefits of doing cold water therapy are inflammation. I would say that's probably the most important, because inflammation is the cause of all disease. And there's this inflammatory cytokine, which is it's a pro-inflammatory cytokine. It's called TNF alpha, and it's pretty much related to all types of disease. You know, from diabetes to pretty much, you know, any disease that's out there. You're going to find an abundance of this TNF. Something that we don't want necessarily a lot of. Water therapy is our body releases something called norepinephrine, also known as noradrenaline. That acts as an inhibitor of this alpha, which is this pro-inflammation cytokine. So it's helping our body to reduce inflammation naturally, without a steroid injection, without a medication, right? A pill over the counter or pharmaceutical or anything like that, that's going to have side effects. Noradrenaline does that on its own. It's creating its own medicine. The other thing that I really like, that I consider a positive benefit of cold water or ice baths, is you are training your nervous system. Because when you stay cold, the first thing that happens is your breathing changes, right? Can't catch breath, rapid, shallow breathing. You go into a fight or flight mode, which is activation of the sympathetic nervous system. And your body and your mind is saying, get the hell out of here. But with training and using different techniques and methods and changing your breathing and mentally surrendering, you are learning how to adapt to stress in a positive way, because you are literally stepping into stress, sitting in stress, breathing through stress, and surrendering to stress. And this is a type of hormesis, and allows us to react and adapt to stress in a more positive way, which builds emotional and mental resilience. So those are two benefits. You got other benefits such as metabolism. Your body will actually use visceral fat to produce heat. It's a process called thermogenesis. So our body will start to brown fat. And once it starts to brown fat, it will use the white visceral fat, which is the stuff around our organs, the stuff that leads to cardiovascular disease. It'll actually use that visceral fat as heat production, and which means it's reducing visceral fat over time, of course. So it's great for metabolism as well, and could aid in weight loss. It's good for the mental, because norepinephrine is released into the bloodstream almost immediately. Big doses of it, actually, and that has a positive impact on mood and focus and our attention. So that's why we feel that kind of presence as well. You know, we feel like a little bit more connected. But also, it has been shown to have a positive effect on our brainwave states, because it's taking our brainwaves out of this high beta range, this external thinking, right, into the lower brainwave states, which are like alpha and theta wave states, because like you said, you're not worried about what you need to do later on today, or what you could have done earlier this morning or yesterday. It's very much right here, right now. And that's the beauty of it, because when you get into those moments of right here, right now, your brain starts to calm down, it becomes less aroused, and your inner world starts to become more real than your outer world. And what's beautiful about this is your mind is more suggestible when it's in a theta state. So me personally, my personal practice is, like you said, you do your prayers in your morning breath work, which is a great time to do it. I do my prayers and affirmations in the ice bath, because my mind is in this suggestible state and my attention is internally within, and I'm using these mantras, these prayers, these attunements to help change my vibration, my frequency, and call in good things to my life. So there's another benefit that I see from cold baths. It produces more energy. There's those hormones that we talked about, make the feel-good hormones, positive effects on inflammation, and also metabolism as well, because of the visceral fat reduction. So I would say those are the main ones, but there's other benefits as well. Circulation. So think about it. When you go into cold, your blood is pulling from the extremities into the core. This is like a survival mechanism. It's going to keep your organs at the temperature that it needs to be at. When you get out of the ice bath, what's happening is that all that blood is reflowing back to the extremities. So we have 100,000 miles of circulatory system in our body, blood vessels. That's hard to even fathom. 100,000 miles. If you were to take it all out And I mean, just Google it. Don't take my word for it. But that's how much blood circulation we have in our body. And think about that. By opening and closing, because vasoconstriction occurs when you go into cold, and when you go into the heat or you get out, things start to open up. You're really starting to move blood and make this vascular system less rigid. And improved circulation is like one of the key indicators for health and wellness. It's very, very important, and it's overlooked quite a bit. So it's not talked about enough, but it's very important for overall health. So there's some benefits of cold water.
There's a few benefits.
Just a few.
And I can tell you that, I mean, I feel like for me, there's a drastic change that happens after I do an ice bath. I mean, I go over to Optimize almost every single day. Yeah. And I mean, I feel amazing. My thought, any racing thoughts that I had are gone, right? I'm able to be present. I'm not thinking about the future. I'm not thinking about the past. I'm completely present, and I'm in a Zen state. Yes. And I sleep really well. I've got nothing on my mind. It's a beautiful thing. So let's talk about red light therapy. Yeah. So sure. People ask me, so do you feel different? And it's like, well, I mean, I don't know if I would say I feel a drastic difference. It's one of the things I do. And so, but I want you to talk about it. What are the benefits of red light therapy? Got it. A little bit of history first, because I love history. Originally created by NASA, actually, to help grow plants in outer space. So that's where it comes from. The sun also emits this infrared rays and red light therapy. So when people refer to red light therapy, I want you to know it's two types of technology that they're working with. It's red light wavelengths and near infrared therapy, near infrared rays. So that's what your body is absorbing when you're standing in front of those panels that you see, out there on social media or wherever else. When the sun is coming up in the morning and when it's coming down in the evening, one thing you will notice is that it's very amber. The amber is basically what's producing that a lot of those red light rays are being put out into the field at that time. So this is all coined photobiomodulation, light therapy. Our bodies need light. We are cells. We know that. Our body's made up of millions and millions of cells. And our cells have mitochondria. And mitochondria are like little battery packs. And the decline in mitochondria is basically aging. So we can correlate aging with the decline of our mitochondria. If you smoke cigarettes and you have a lot of unhealthy habits and you want to drink a lot and you don't want to get good sleep and you want to stare at screens really late at night and do all these bad habits and eat high inflammatory foods and all that kind of stuff. If you want to live a life of that, you can. But essentially what most likely will happen is that aging will occur faster and the decline in mitochondria will occur faster. So if you want to slow that down and you want to take care of your cells and you want to help to slow down the aging process, red light therapy is a great therapy. So originally created by NASA, and what he found was it was healing the scars, I believe, on his hand. And that's how he was like, oh, wow, this could be used as like therapeutic device. And then, it's come a long way, but now they use these LED lights. It was originally lasers, and the LED lights provide help your mitochondria to create more cellular energy. And when your cells are energized, they do their job better, right? Just like anything else. When they do their job better, they're going to produce collagen. They help with pain and inflammation. For men, they can help raise natural testosterone levels because of Leydig cells. They can help with scar tissue, but also produce more energy. But ultimately, when you're doing red light therapy, you are helping your cells or your mitochondria to create more ATP energy. So there's some science for you. It's a great therapy, and it's only like 10 minutes a day, and that's why I love it so much, because it's easy and cost effective. What are some of the main bullet points? So if you were to give me 6 bullet points of the benefits of red light therapy, what are they?
Number one, cellular energy, for sure. The other one would be helps with pain and inflammation because of the near infrared rays. Helps with the production of collagen, which is like skin health, which of course we all want, whether it's trying to heal a tissue or whether it's just looking more youthful. Sexual health, it's been shown to improve sexual health because it's a vasodilator. So it's opening up the vascular system, which is improving blood flow and circulation. And also nitric oxide, which is also a vasodilator, which, essentially that's how our arousal works, right? If you want to get into it. But testosterone hormones, I think it's a wonderful, I have my personal story of, how it helps to get your body to create its own natural testosterone rather than having to rely on a pharmaceutical intervention as you get older. Because naturally, as you get older as a male, right, what's going to happen? Testosterone is on a slow decline, especially 40s, 50s, 60s, and so on. So if you keep your hormones up, you have more of that longevity, more vibrant, more energetic, all those types of things. So cellular energy, inflammation, circulation, sexual health, I would say those are the main, and pain and inflammation are the same main bullet points.
Gotcha.
So, yeah, good stuff.
So we've been talking for a little over 90 minutes here. So what do you want people to have taken away from today, from our talk?
Good question. Thank you for asking. There's so many things we covered today. We covered a wide variety of topics. We covered science. We covered theory. We covered my story, how I got from A to B. I don't have all the answers by any means, but I'm just a seeker. I'm always looking to be better. So, my answer, my thing for the audience would be, don't stop exploring. You have more influence than you think you have. Especially as you dive and learn more about how this operating system of the mind and how this machinery of the body works. We have so much more influence. We are much more capable than we think. And lastly, I would say that discipline is the key to happiness. So if you're looking for happiness, which I think we all are, no matter what our differences are, because we do have lots of differences, but I think we're more alike than we are different. So discipline is the key to happiness. And if you apply discipline in certain areas of life that maybe you're lacking in, your physical fitness, your diet, your sleep patterns, there's all wide variety of spectrum. You'll learn that when you follow through, you say what you're going to do, you follow through and you do it, ultimately you will feel better in your nervous system and serotonin, all those things. The science stuff will respond to those behaviors in a positive way. But you need to apply the discipline first. And I'm not perfect, I have bouts where I'm, eating poor or, getting away from some of my better habits. But I always find my way back. And the faster you can find your way back, the better. If it takes you months where you get off track for months, then now you're in trouble. But if you get off track for a week and now you're back on track again, well, then you're doing all right. So don't be so hard on yourself either, You just want to reduce the amount of time that it takes you to get back on track. And ultimately, you'll be feeling better every day. So
it's all about the journey.
It's all about the journey. Exactly. There's a lot to explore, and it's a beautiful place and a beautiful time to be alive.
Absolutely. Michael, how can people find you?
So I'm a co-founder of a center here in Phoenix called Optimize, OPTIMYZE. We're on 38th Street in Indian School, right in the heart of Arcadia. We have another center that will be opening in Tempe come April. So we would love to have you come and do an Optimize Center session and get access to these benefits. You can find me personally on Instagram. I go by Michael, MICHAEL, _the_ARC, Michael the Arc. You can find me on Instagram. and you have my name. I also have a Facebook page, and I also teach the Wim Hof Method Fundamentals course here in the Valley. So if you're interested in these types of discussion, these types of lessons, and actually going through the process and being guided, then you'll really love this workshop. So I invite you to come and check it out.
And I would attest to that. I took the fundamentals workshop, and it was amazing. It gave me such a great foundation for the Wim Hof method, and I learned. And I was doing ice baths and breath work prior to doing the fundamentals course. But after the fundamentals course and really digging in and really learning more about it was such an amazing thing. And I think there were 6 people in the class when I took it, and there was 200 pounds of ice in the ice bath. So the water was actually at like 28 degrees, and all 6 people got in that water for 90 seconds after doing, because it was such an amazing thing to do breath work correctly around people, because there's the energy of other people and the energy in the room, and every single one of us were able to do the ice bath for over 90 seconds, which was a beautiful thing. So Michael, thank you so much. I appreciate you, and I got a lot out of our conversation today, and thanks everybody. Hope you have a wonderful evening.
Thank you. Thanks for allowing me to share my story, and hopefully inspire someone else to try these different techniques. So thanks again, Tim. Look forward to seeing you soon.
Sounds good.